Maria nodded, her hand gripping Jaden's shoulder like she was afraid if she let go he might disappear too. One of the club's old ladies, a woman named Ruth who'd been married to Bear for 26 years and had seen the club through countless crises, sat down beside Maria and began the gentle work of keeping her grounded, asking practical questions about Sophia's medical information, allergies, favorite things, creating a portrait of the child they were searching for while keeping Maria's mind from spiraling into worst-case scenarios. Derek's phone buzzed with an incoming call from Razor. "We've got something. Convenience store on Belmont and First. Security camera caught a light blue Honda Civic sedan, 4-door, rear bumper damage, pulling in at 5:02. That's about 15 minutes after the abduction timeline. Driver matches description, white female, blonde ponytail, dark sunglasses. She went inside, bought water and snacks, came back out. Camera angle isn't great, but there might be someone small in the back seat." Derek's pulse kicked up. "Where is she now?" "Headed east on Belmont. We've got 3 riders in that area doing a sweep. Store clerk said the woman seemed nervous, kept checking her phone, paid cash. Detective Chen is pulling the footage now and has units moving toward that corridor." Derek relayed the information to Maria and Jaden, watching hope flare in both their faces. Jaden stood up, his voice urgent. "That's the direction toward Highway 168. If she gets on the highway, she can go to the mountains or out toward the desert. You have to stop her before she gets there." Derek was already texting the group chain, redirecting riders toward the Belmont corridor and Highway 168 on-ramps, creating a net of eyes watching every possible route. The next 17 minutes were the longest of Derek's life, watching the group text chain fill with location updates, watching the map on the laptop as riders moved like chess pieces across Fresno's grid, watching Jaden's face cycle through hope and fear and desperate prayer. Maria held her son and whispered reassurances neither of them believed yet. And Ruth kept talking in that steady, calm voice that social workers and nurses and people who worked with trauma learned to use, the voice that said, "We're here. You're not alone. We're going to get through this together." Derek's phone rang again. Razor. His voice was tight with controlled excitement. Smoke spotted the vehicle, eastbound on Belmont approaching Fruit Avenue. Light blue Honda Civic, rear bumper damage passenger side, paper plates. He's maintaining distance, 2 car lengths back. Can't confirm occupants, but vehicle matches. Derek switched to speakerphone so everyone in the clubhouse could hear. "Where are law enforcement units?" Razor's voice came back immediate. "Detective Chen says nearest marked unit is 4 minutes out. She's got unmarked units closer, maybe 2 minutes. She's ordering everyone to hold position, no contact, just visual. Smoke knows the protocol. He's just keeping eyes on target." Derek looked at Bear, who was already on his phone with Detective Chen, coordinating the intercept. The club president's face was set in hard lines, the expression of someone who'd done this kind of work before, who knew how quickly situations could turn dangerous, who understood that the difference between a successful recovery and a tragedy often came down to seconds and decisions made under impossible pressure. The group text chain exploded with activity as riders converged on the area, creating a loose perimeter without getting close enough to spook the driver. Smoke's updates came in steady rhythm, eastbound on Belmont passing Fruit, passing Recreation, approaching the Highway 168 on-ramp. If the woman made it onto the highway, the situation would change dramatically, the playing field expanding from city streets to open road, speeds increasing, options for intervention decreasing. Derek could feel the tension in the clubhouse, everyone frozen in place, listening to speakerphone updates, watching the map, waiting for confirmation that law enforcement had made contact. Detective Chen's voice came through Bear's phone, calm and professional. "Unmarked unit has visual. We're moving to intercept before the highway entrance. All civilian units maintain distance and clear the area. I repeat, clear the area. This is now an active law enforcement operation." Bear acknowledged and relayed the order through the group chain. Derek watched the text responses come in, brothers confirming they were pulling back, creating space for the professionals to work. Jaden was standing now, his small body rigid with tension, his eyes locked on the phone like he could will Sophia into existence through sheer force of hope. Maria had her arms wrapped around herself, rocking slightly, lips moving in silent prayer. Then, Detective Chen's voice again. And this time, there was something different in her tone, relief barely contained beneath professional composure. Vehicle stopped. Driver in custody, child recovered. Repeat, child recovered, appears unharmed, en route to Valley Children's Hospital for evaluation. The clubhouse erupted. Brothers shouting, Ruth crying, Maria collapsing to her knees with sobs that came from somewhere so deep they seemed to tear her apart and rebuild her at the same time. Jaden stood perfectly still for 3 seconds, processing, and then he looked at Derek with eyes that held more emotions than a 9-year-old should be capable of feeling. You found her. You believed me, and you found her. Derek knelt down, his own eyes burning. You found her, Jaden. You're the one who saw what was happening. You're the one who ran for help. You're the one who didn't give up when people didn't believe you. You saved your sister's life because you were brave enough to trust a stranger with a scary-looking vest and smart enough to know that sometimes the people who look dangerous are actually the ones who'll protect you. Jaden lunged forward and hugged Derek with the fierce desperation of a child who'd been carrying the weight of the world and could finally put it down. And Derek held him while the boy cried. This kid who'd done everything right in an impossible situation, who'd made a split-second judgment about who to trust and had been absolutely correct. The ride to Valley Children's Hospital was a convoy, 20 Central Valley Kings motorcycles escorting Maria and Jaden in Ruth's SUV, engines rumbling through Fresno's streets like rolling thunder, announcing that one of their own was coming home. Derek led the formation, Razor beside him, the rest of the brothers falling into tight parade formation that drew stares and caused traffic to pull aside. They arrived at the hospital's emergency entrance to find Detective Chen waiting, along with 2 uniformed officers and a woman from Child Protective Services. Chen approached Maria first, her expression professional but kind. Ms. Torres, Sophia is inside being examined. She appears physically unharmed. The woman who took her is in custody and being transported to county jail. We'll need to interview both your children and you, but right now, your daughter needs her mother. Maria practically ran through the emergency room doors, Jaden right behind her, and Derek and the brothers waited outside, not wanting to crowd the family's reunion with too much presence. 20 minutes later, a nurse came out and told Derek that Sophia was asking for the man on the motorcycle who'd helped find her, and would he like to come in. Derek followed the nurse through sterile hallways to a pediatric examination room, where Sophia sat on a bed that was far too big for her, wearing a hospital gown covered in cartoon characters, her dark hair still in the 2 braids Jaden had described, her left cheek showing the heart-shaped birthmark that made her unmistakably Sophia Torres. Maria sat beside her, one arm wrapped protectively around her daughter, and Jaden stood on the other side gripping his sister's hand like he'd never let go again. Sophia looked at Derek with wide eyes, taking in his size, his beard, his leather vest, and then she smiled, that same gap-toothed smile from the school photo Jaden had thrust into his hands at the 7-Eleven. You're the motorcycle man. Jaden said you and your friends found me. Derek's throat was too tight to speak for a moment, so he just nodded. Sophia's voice was small but clear. The lady said she had puppies, but she didn't. She put me in her car, and I was really scared, and I wanted my mom. But then police came and got me, and they said my brother told people I was missing, and motorcycle people helped look for me. She looked at Jaden. You saved me. Jaden shook his head, tears streaming down his face. The bikers saved you. I just told them what happened. No, Derek said quietly, finding his voice. Your brother saved you, Sophia. He saw what was happening and he ran for help, and he didn't stop until someone believed him. He's a hero. Sophia hugged Jaden, and Maria pulled both her children close, and Derek stepped back to give them space, feeling Ruth's hand on his shoulder as she joined him. You did good, Stone, Ruth said, using his road name. The club did good. That little girl's going home because 47 men dropped everything and rode out in 100-degree heat to search every street in the city. That's what we're about. That's why we wear these patches. Derek nodded, watching the Torres family hold each other, watching Jaden finally let himself be 9 years old again, instead of carrying adult responsibilities on child shoulders. Detective Chen found Derek in the hospital waiting area an hour later, while the doctors finished their evaluation and the family gave initial statements. She sat down beside him, her detective's notebook closed for once. The woman we arrested is Jennifer Hammond, 42 years old, from Sacramento. She's got a history. 2 prior attempts at child abduction in Northern California, restraining orders, involuntary psychiatric holds. She lost custody of her own daughter 3 years ago and apparently became fixated on replacing her. Chen paused. Your club's response time and coordination probably saved that child's life. If Hammond had made it to the highway, if she'd gotten another 20 minutes head start, we'd be looking at a very different outcome. I can't officially endorse civilian search operations, but off the record, what you all did today was remarkable. Derek met her eyes. Off the record, we couldn't sit around waiting while a 6-year-old was being taken farther from home every minute. We've got the manpower, we've got the bikes that can cover ground fast, and we've got brothers who understand that protecting kids is non-negotiable. You needed eyes on the street and we provided them. We didn't engage, we didn't interfere with your arrest. We followed protocol. Chen smiled slightly. You followed protocol better than some officers I've worked with. If your club ever wants to do formal training with our department on child safety awareness and community response, I can make that happen. Derek filed that information away, knowing Bear would be interested in deepening the partnership between Central Valley Kings and local law enforcement. The Torres family was discharged from the hospital 3 hours after Sophia's arrival, with appointments scheduled for trauma counseling and follow-up medical evaluation. The entire family would need support processing what had happened, especially Sophia, who would likely have nightmares and anxiety, and Jaden, who'd witnessed his sister's abduction and carried the burden of rescuing her. But tonight, they were together. They were safe, and they were surrounded by a community that had mobilized to bring them home. Maria approached Derek before they left, Jaden and Sophia holding hands beside her. I don't know how to thank you. I don't know what you say to people who save your child's life. You don't have to say anything, Derek replied. But if you want to do something, teach both your kids that what Jaden did today, running for help, trusting his instincts, refusing to give up when people didn't believe him, that's what saved Sophia. Teach them that asking strangers for help in real emergencies isn't breaking safety rules. It's exactly what they should do. Maria nodded, wiping her eyes. Jaden had pulled the school photo of Sophia from his pocket, the one he'd carried to the 7-Eleven, the one that had started everything. He held it out to Derek. You should keep this, so you remember. Derek shook his head gently. That's your sister's picture. You keep it to remember that you're brave and you're a good brother and you did everything right. But I'll tell you what, next week you and Sophia come to the clubhouse. We're having a barbecue and we'd like you to meet all the brothers who helped search today. We take care of our own and your family now. Jaden's face lit up with something that looked like hope and belonging, the knowledge that he wasn't alone, that he had an entire motorcycle club standing behind him. 3 weeks later, the Central Valley Kings held their monthly community barbecue, and Jaden and Sophia Torres were guests of honor. Sophia wore a pink dress and her hair in 2 braids with purple beads this time, and she spent the afternoon sitting on various motorcycles, while patient bikers explained how engines worked and let her pretend to steer. Jaden wore a Central Valley Kings t-shirt that Bear had given him, youth-sized with the club logo on the front, and he moved through the gathering with quiet pride, introducing his mom and sister to the men who'd searched for her, shaking hands and saying thank you over and over until his voice went hoarse. The brothers treated him with respect, not condescension, acknowledging what he'd done, how his quick thinking and courage had made the rescue possible. Bear presented Jaden with a certificate, unofficial but meaningful, naming him an honorary junior member of Central Valley Kings for demonstrating bravery, loyalty, and protection of family under crisis conditions. The boy's hands shook as he accepted it, his eyes shining with tears he fought to contain. Derek watched Jaden show the certificate to Sophia, explaining what it meant, and saw the bond between them, the way trauma had strengthened rather than fractured their relationship. Sophia would heal knowing her brother had fought for her. Jaden would grow up knowing his voice mattered, that adults would listen when he spoke truth, that he had the strength to act when action was needed. The story of Sophia's rescue became part of Central Valley Kings legend, told at club meetings and charity events, used as a teaching moment about community responsibility and the importance of taking children's reports seriously. The club formalized their relationship with Fresno PD, creating a rapid response protocol for missing children that leveraged the club's numbers and mobility while respecting law enforcement authority. They partnered with local schools to teach child safety awareness, including a module specifically about when and how to ask strangers for help, using Jaden's story as a case study in trusting instincts and being persistent when seeking assistance. Detective Chen worked with the club to create wallet-sized cards that Central Valley Kings members carried and distributed throughout the community, listing warning signs of child abduction, what to do if you witness suspicious behavior, and how to report concerns. The cards featured Sophia's school photo, with her family's permission, as a reminder of what was at stake, of the real child behind the statistics, of the life saved because one 9-year-old boy refused to be dismissed and one group of bikers chose to believe him and act immediately. Over the following year, the protocol was activated 3 more times for missing children, and in 2 of those cases, Central Valley Kings riders were instrumental in locating the child quickly, their mobile search grid covering ground that would have taken law enforcement hours to canvass with available units. Jaden grew up with Central Valley Kings as extended family, showing up at events with his mother and sister, helping with toy drives and fundraisers, learning about motorcycles and engines and the code of brotherhood that held the club together. When he turned 13, Derek took him on his first real ride, 2 hours through the Central Valley with Sophia and Maria following in Ruth's car for safety, and Jaden's face showed pure joy, the freedom of movement and wind and the rumble of engine beneath him. He talked about getting his own bike someday, about maybe prospecting for the club when he was old enough, about being the kind of man who showed up when people needed help, just like the brothers had shown up for him and Sophia. Sophia recovered with remarkable resilience, aided by consistent therapy and the support of a family and community that rallied around her. She had nightmares sometimes, moments of panic in parking lots or around strangers, but she also had the knowledge that she was loved fiercely, protected absolutely, and that her brother and an entire motorcycle club would move heaven and earth to keep her safe. She drew pictures of motorcycles and gave them to Derek and the other brothers, childish crayon drawings of bikes and riders with the words, "Thank you for finding me," written in careful letters across the top. Derek kept every single one, a gallery of gratitude that decorated the clubhouse walls and reminded members why they wore their patches and what their presence in the community meant. Maria Torres became active in the club's community outreach, using her experience to advocate for better public awareness about child safety and stranger abduction prevention. She spoke at schools and community centers, telling Sophia's story with her daughter's permission, emphasizing the importance of teaching children to trust their instincts, to be loud when something felt wrong, to run for help rather than complying with adults who made them uncomfortable. She talked about Jaden's courage, about how a 9-year-old had saved his sister because he'd been taught to be observant and to seek help from anyone available in a genuine emergency. Even a stranger in a leather vest who looked nothing like traditional heroes but who turned out to be exactly the right person at exactly the right moment. Years later, when Jaden was 16 and working on getting his learner's permit to eventually ride, he wrote an essay for a school assignment about the person who'd most influenced his life. He wrote about Derek Stone Mitchell, about a biker who could have dismissed a crying kid at a gas station, who could have assumed the boy was confused or seeking attention, who could have told him to call the police and handled it through official channels. Instead, Derek had believed him immediately, had mobilized an entire motorcycle club within minutes, had treated a 9-year-old's testimony with the same seriousness he'd given adults, and had set in motion a search operation that brought Sophia home. Jaden wrote about learning that courage sometimes meant approaching someone who looked scary, that protection came from unexpected sources, and that family wasn't just blood, but also the people who showed up when your world was falling apart. The essay earned Jaden first place in a statewide writing competition, and when he stood on stage accepting his award, Derek and Bear were in the audience wearing their Central Valley Kings vests, sitting beside Maria and Sophia, cheering louder than anyone else. After the ceremony, Jaden found Derek in the crowd and handed him a copy of the essay. "Read it when you get home," Jaden said. "I wanted you to know what that day at the 7-Eleven meant to me, what you all meant to me." Derek read it that night in his workshop while cleaning his bike, and he had to stop twice because his eyes blurred too much to make out the words. This tribute from a young man who'd been a terrified child 6 years earlier, who'd made a split-second decision to trust a stranger and had been proven right. The Central Valley Kings added a new tradition after Sophia's rescue, an annual ride called the Sophia Run, where club members and families rode from Roding Park to Valley Children's Hospital, raising money for child safety programs and trauma counseling services. Sophia and Jaden rode every year, Sophia on the back of Bear's bike wearing a custom youth helmet with her name on it, Jaden with Derek, and Maria in the support vehicle with Ruth. The ride grew every year, eventually drawing over 200 motorcycles and raising tens of thousands of dollars, becoming one of the Central Valley's signature charity events. But for those who'd been there that July afternoon, for the 47 riders who'd dropped everything and searched every street in 103-degree heat, the ride was something more personal, a reminder of why they wore their patches and what those patches represented. Derek kept one thing from that day at the 7-Eleven, the crumpled school photo of Sophia that Jaden had thrust into his hands while whispering those 6 desperate words. Jaden had insisted Derek keep it after all, wanting him to have a reminder of what they'd accomplished together. The photo lived in Derek's wallet now, worn at the edges, the tape on the corner reapplied several times. A permanent reminder that paying attention mattered, that believing children when they reported something wrong could mean the difference between rescue and tragedy, that sometimes a 9-year-old's instinct about who to trust was more reliable than any safety rule. Because that was the truth underneath everything else, the lesson that couldn't be taught but only learned through experience. Children in danger often had seconds to make impossible choices about who to approach for help. Predators counted on adults being too busy, too skeptical, too uncomfortable with getting involved. But every person willing to listen, to believe, to act immediately when a child asked for help became part of the network that brought kids home safely. Jaden had been brave enough to run, to choose Derek, to thrust out that photo and beg for help. Derek and his brothers had been present enough to respond, to mobilize, to search until Sophia was found. And together, they'd proven that awareness in action, belief in brotherhood, could stop a nightmare in progress and give a family back their future.